Listen to the wind and listen to the water. Hear what they say. Singing, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey. Singing, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, I get my joy from the simple things coming from the earth. I get my joy from the sun that shines and the water speaks to me. Listen to the wind and listen to the water. Hear what they say. Singing, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey. Singing, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey.
I feel like we should do it again. This is really good.
I get my joy from the simple things coming from the earth. I get my joy from the sun that shines and the water speaks to me. Listen to the wind and listen to the water. Hear what they say. Singing, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey. Singing, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey.
Maybe we'll bring it down a little bit. I don't know. This is pretty hype. How about no coming, no going?
No, that's the end song. That's the end one. Absolutely not. No, I refuse to sing number 16.
Oh no.
This is blackmail. No, I refuse. Stop this. I can't hear it.
What about I want to sing alone. Alone again.
All of the songs inter-are with each other, so we can just sing a different song, and it'll be like we're singing number 16.
If they're inter-R, why can't we sing number 16, and then it might be like we're singing another song for you?
All right, I've been defeated. All right, sure.
All right, the circle.
We won, guys.
Can't argue with that.
There is place for you in the circle.
The circle can expand. Come and join the circle. All people hand in hand. There is love for you in the circle. Love you can understand. Come and join the circle. All people hand in hand. There is peace in the circle. Non-violence is our plan. Come and join the circle. All people hand in hand. There is strength in the circle. As together we all stand. Come and join the circle. All people hand in hand. There is healing in the circle. Healing on the land. Come and join the circle. All people hand in hand. There's a place for you in the circle. The circle can expand. Come and join the circle. All people hand in hand.
That wasn't so bad.
Sure.
All right.
One more.
No coming, no going.
No, that's the last one. That's the one we do in the...
Oh, everyone does it. Okay. Yeah, in gratitude for sure. Yeah, that's a good idea. All right. We're going to sing number 17, No Coming, No Going.
No coming, no going, no after, no before. I hold you close to me. I release you to be so free. Because I am in you, and you are in me. Because I am in you, and you are in me.
I like to wait for like 4, you know. Okay.
No coming, no going, no after, no before. I hold you close to me. I release you to be so free. Because I am in you, and you are in me. Because I am in you, and you are in me. All right, thank you for practicing singing meditation with us. Now I'll invite my monastic brothers and sisters up for chanting, for real this time.
Chúng con kính mời quý thầy Visco mình lên để tụng kinh trước pháp thoại. So we invite all the monks and nuns, we come up here to chanting before Dharma talk. Và sáng hôm nay chúng ta sẽ tụng 3 sự quay về. tiếng Anh trang 11 và tiếng Việt trang 10. So we will chant the three refuge in page 11 and in Vietnamese in page 10.
Contemplation before chanting. The Sangha is invited to come back to our breathing so that our collective energy of mindfulness will bring us back together as an organism, going as a river with no more separation. Let the whole Sangha breathe as one body, chant as one body, listen as one body, and transcend the boundaries of a delusive self, liberating from the superiority complex, the inferiority complex, and the equality complex. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this time. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Dwelling in the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha in myself, I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the might of love. Taking refuge in the Dharma in myself, I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation. Taking refuge in the Sangha in myself, I aspire to help all people build fulfilled communities, to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Con về nương tựa Bụt, người đưa đường chỉ lối cho con trong cuộc đời. Nam mô
Testing. I told myself I wasn't going to say testing, but I did anyway. Testing. Can you everyone hear okay? No? Okay. Please call me by my true names. Okay. Dear respected Tay, dear venerable, dear community, testing. 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? Please call me by my true names. Okay. So, dear respected community, welcome to the last day of our wake-up retreat at Blue Cliff Monastery. The date is June 29, 2025, and we are at the Great Togetherness Hall at Blue Cliff Monastery. The theme of this retreat is to love and to be loved. I'm sure that deep down in our hearts, that is a very intimate topic for each one of us. During this retreat, we've had a wonderful kind of array, menu of different teachings and practices to take up, to reflect on our relationship with love, whether it's on the receiving end or the offering end. Our brother Emptiness on the first talk gave us a wide array of teachings to start to explore, including the 4 immeasurable minds. And then Sister Empathy shared very beautifully about the topic of true love. So from these past days, and also from our personal experience at this retreat and also before, we've uncovered some gems. We've been reminded that true love is not passion or craving. That may be part of our desire, our interest, and that kind of a part of the whole package, but that's not how we as spiritual practitioners define true love. So it's not a passion or craving, and we've learned that true love is a connection that is based on understanding. And the deeper our understanding, the truer and the deeper our love is. Right? We also learned in various spaces, not just here in the hall, but in the Dharma sharings over and over again, what I heard from our retreatants was that self-care is a very important part of true love. That it doesn't exclude oneself, but it necessarily includes care, respect, listening to ourselves as a path of truly loving and truly being loved. So today I'd like to expand on the 4 immeasurables and look at the tool of right speech, of mindful speech, as a way that we can support the practice of true love in our life. We already covered 4. It's a topic that we, at least for me, I know I return to often just because it's such an accessible teaching. It's something that we can easily see and apply in our daily life. So that when we speak of love, it's not something amorphous and we don't misunderstand it for other things like passion or craving. Okay, so as I'll just review a little bit. So the first, immeasurable mind, is loving kindness. Okay. And we call them immeasurable for a number of reasons. Immeasurable because it's something that we can always develop further, deepening our skill. So you can never end, you can never say, been there, done that. I have enough loving kindness. We can always expand because our scope of care can always expand. Right now it may be just our partner. Maybe it's our family. Some of us are very Sangha-oriented, so we have a natural affinity to come into community, and some of us are on a more global scale, across nations, across to those on the other side of the world. And some of us care deeply about not just people, but non-people, the earth, the animals, the atmosphere. So there's always space to grow. That's one of the reasons why we call it immeasurable. So loving kindness is basically a desire and a capacity. Our teacher often emphasizes it's not just the wish to do that makes it an immeasurable, but it's the capacity to follow through, to bring joy to that person. Right? So you can think of it like a wing person, your wing person. They're always rooting for you. They're always there to make life easier for you, to bring you joy, to bring things to you that bring you joy, based on an understanding of you. Second one is compassion. Again, it's not just a bleeding heart that feels. You're not just as an empath, but you actually have the capacity to relieve suffering. So you feel deeply another person's suffering or society's suffering, and you also have the means, the capacity to relieve that. Many of us are in the place of feeling pain, but we don't know what to do with it. That was my situation before I became a nun. I felt stuck inside. I felt a lot of the very sensitive to the outside turmoils, but I didn't know how to channel that feeling into something that could touch that compassion and make it alive. The third one is sympathetic joy. Sometimes we just say joy, but the sympathetic joy is to emphasize that we rejoice for the other person's successes and joys. So you can think of it as the opposite of envy or jealousy. Rather than feeling competitive and upset or envious about another person's success, you're happy for them. You give them a high five, or you give yourself a high five because you're connected. Their success is your success. And in our community, we actively practice this so that we can maintain harmony in our monastic sangha. Many siblings have many different talents and skills that I don't have. And if I weren't to actively water the seed, I could very well fall into competitiveness or small-mindedness, jealousies. So we actively practice to see your success as my success because we're all part of one community. And that's an active process of harmony in the community. We can think of that in our family too, among siblings, even across partners. Sometimes partners are a bit competitive. Someone's a little bit more successful, someone's making a little more money, someone has a larger circle of friends, and words start to come up that show that we are not actively keeping the seed so healthy in our relationship. The last one is traditionally, we say equanimity. Our teacher, Tai, has also translated that as inclusiveness. Because when you allow things to come in, allow things to go without grasping, without reacting, it means you're inclusive of everything. So someone's imperfections don't rub you the wrong way. You don't take things personally. The other person doesn't have to be perfect. Whoever and however they are is fine. As we stated before, of course, this isn't just for other people, it's also for ourselves. It's also a standard that we try to lift up for ourselves. We don't have to be perfect, however we are we okay with that? Okay, so those are the four immeasurables that we normally speak of. In later years, our teacher has added 2. I had shared this a little bit before in our group, smaller group. Faith and gratitude are the other 2 that our teacher added. Okay. Faith and gratitude. In our community, we've been graced with the presence of our Brother Dailuk's mother for a few months now, a number of months. I don't know if she's here, but she has a very beautiful way of, every time she comes to see a monastic, she offers a lotus and offers a bow to our monastic siblings. And sometimes it's not just once or twice, but multiple times in a day. And when I see that, it reminds me of the Bodhisattva Sadapaributta. There's beyond the 4 main bodhisattvas that we heard about this morning during the ceremony, the 5th one is Sadapaributta, the bodhisattva who never despises, but always sees, always honors the Buddha nature in the other person. And so there's a deep faith that comes from that practice of offering a lotus to you, a Buddha to be. It's a very beautiful practice. And over time, as I've kept interacting with Mami like that, I realized that she was a bell of mindfulness for me to also stop and acknowledge this connection that we both have Buddha nature, and that I too could offer her that acknowledgement, a Buddha bowing back to the Buddha to be in her. So this Buddha nature, this capacity to be fully awake, is what faith is about. Right? On a spiritual dimension, when we have full faith in something, we can trust it to miraculously cure us. Right? Miraculously bring us to a different plane, different experience. But this is a seed that needs to be watered in our daily life as well, in our relationships with one another. So many of us have complexes that we hide behind a facade of diffidence or calm. And it's waiting to be watered by ourselves, to have true faith that we have the capacity to face more directly those things that are kind of being pushed down in us, and to have a chance to grow or change. So this is something that maybe we have to actively work on if we come from a family that doesn't have a habit of placing faith. Right? When I became a monastic, I learned from my teacher that this is actually a practice to entrust in others. I remember in college, the word trust to me, I didn't really have a connection with that word. And when other people spoke about trust or feeling that they couldn't trust me, it didn't impinge on me. My attitude was, well, that's too bad, that's on you. Because I really did not understand just how essential this fifth quality is to a loving, close, intimate relationship. So faith is like the fertilizer that makes us grow. And our teacher was a master gardener. He would entrust us with all sorts of different tasks, different projects, questions, ask our opinion, and he actively entrusted us. And that's why I think as monastics, many of us continue, because we're still nurturing that memory of our teacher's trust in us. So sometimes our parents, they have a habit of not trusting. There's certain qualities that come up when we're not trusted that we feel, right? There's kind of like a hovering. Like they might not say something, but they're hovering. Or they say they trust you, but they're micromanaging, kind of like that, right? So these are actively kind of the environment that we are growing from, that we need to recognize. And recognize that now as adults, the work of gardening is now in our hands. It's not in our parents' hands anymore. And actually, it's not even in the hands of our friends, although they can help a lot. It's in our hands. We are the ones to grow that seed of faith in ourselves, grow that habit, that training to learn how to love more truly by offering that trust to others. The sixth one of gratitude is also an active aspect in our community. We hear that a lot, but I'd like to break it down a little bit. Let's see. Alana, for you, in a nutshell, what does gratitude mean? Alana said to be present, to feel reverence for the life around you and in you. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so gratitude has in it a stopping and being present to actually see those conditions around us. And there's actually many things that we can be grateful for. The very most mundane thing is to start to recognize the things that we've been blind to because we've been so busy, or we've had a certain perception about someone, right? We miss their positive qualities. So this practice of coming back to a place of stillness, to look a little bit more gently at something or someone and start to recognize what I would call a daffodil. The daffodils are those things that we tend to ignore. We look to the roses, we look to the tulips, the bright flowers, the big flowers, but those daffodils in the cracks of the sidewalk we often ignore. So they offer their beauty too. And that is one of the things that we can start to nourish our relationship by noticing the seemingly mundane things in the other person. The fact that every day that person shows up for you, is there and gently supporting you, is something that we might ignore and think, oh, that's just normal. But so many people actually don't have that. So that's a daffodil that we can turn into a flower that blossoms. So don't think that you don't have anything to be grateful for, because we all have many, many mundane things in our life, right? So if you have mundane things in your life, you have a lot of things to rediscover and pulled into that space of appreciation. Alana used the word reverence, and I would also use that word as deep appreciation, right? For your nourishment by that very thing. In our retreat, many of our friends have shared some life testimonies of how they've touched mud, suffering of broken relationship, suffering of a loss or a big change in their life in the past. And even though they may be suffering, but still it's opened up something new for them. And this is gratitude for the mud. The goodness of suffering is how our teacher would call it. Right? We don't often look at mud and appreciate it as the thing that has grown something for us. So it's an invitation that I'd like to invite you now, looking into our distant past, that mud that has caused you a lot of ache and pain, especially in your relationships, maybe with your family, friends, or with a loved one. What of that has created the conditions for you to be in a better place than you were before? And I've heard some of these testimonials, so I'm going to ask if someone can volunteer just to represent the groups. Yes, Tim, you'd like to use the mic? Yeah. So the question is, what of the mud is it that you are touching gratitude for? Oh no, you can stay up here. I just mean, please turn towards the audience. Yeah. Maybe we can have a bell for sound.
So I came to this retreat with very heavy emotions and feelings. In the last couple months, I was feeling very, very depressed, very alone. And these feelings had gotten so big that I was afraid that if I shared them, that they would make my friends worry, they would make my loved ones worry, or I was afraid that maybe if I shared them, it would cause harm to my loved ones and the feelings would still be there. And there were even some days in the last couple months where where I didn't want to be alive anymore. And coming to this retreat, I had the opportunity to be able to share that with my friends and to be held by them, to be listened to be hugged, and to be able to laugh and play again, and to dance and sing. And after sharing with my friends these heavy feelings, some friends came up to me, new friends that I had only just met, and they had thanked me for being vulnerable and being brave enough to share this with them, and they told me that sharing wasn't only just for me, but it was for the benefit of everybody, because they too also have a habit of hiding their sadness when it gets too big. And they had told me that since I had shared that, it had given them courage to be able to trust and to open their heart to others and to be able to rely and depend on others. And I see that if I hadn't had that suffering, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to be able to provide that for my friends and to be able to connect deeply with many new friends. It's just kind of funny because I was coming into this retreat kind of just judging myself and thinking, why is this despair still here? You know, I have so many wonderful friends. I have the practice, and I was just feeling like, oh, this shouldn't be there. But coming here, I find there's space for all of that. And I just feel very, very lucky. And I just pray that everybody in this room gets, and in the whole world gets to be able to be held and listened to and loved, and to be able to just soak in the love that I've had the opportunity to be able to soak in.
Thank you, Tim. No flowers for Tim. I appreciate his honesty and courage. And by the way, thank you for pointing out the secret sauce to Dharma sharing of being vulnerable, because I think when we touch other people's vulnerability, we open up ourselves and we see the humanity in ourselves as well. Thank you, Tim. So gratitude, sometimes that mud is in a relationship. And we take a step back and look at it from a meta view, that mud can very well be something that leads to a deepening a transformation, a shift in our heart if we give it the right conditions. So the mud is not just mud anymore, but it is the path towards relief, towards transformation. So this is why our teacher has offered up faith and gratitude for us to remember in our relationships. Again, immeasurable because we can always go deeper and wider in the scope of our gratitude and faith, and because it has the capacity to transform our loved one. We are like a sunshine, and when we turn our sunlight fully, gently, but fully onto our loved one, how much they can prosper when we offer them these nourishments. So love is a kind of energy, as we know. We express it not just physically, but we express it verbally, and we express it through our mind. So I'm going to also invite us to reflect on love in the circle of our social circles as well, not just intimate, personal, one-on-one, but in community as well. Okay. So we have our body, right? How we express love through our body. We have our mind, how we express love through our mind, our thoughts, our physical actions, and then we have speech. And this is in Buddhism, we call that our three karmas, three kinds of actions: body, speech, and mind. And because love is an energy, it can manifest in all of these different ways. So we don't get caught in one way or the other. That's part of the beauty of the discourse on the 5 ways of putting an end to anger. You know, if someone's not so lovely this way, but maybe they're manifesting something that we can appreciate physically, we hone in on that as a skillful practitioner, right? Or the opposite, if they have kind of crude actions, but in their heart there's something very beautiful and innocent, or their speech is flowery, although their actions might be stinky, we look at this and we hone in on this. So our 3 actions are just different ways that we manifest love or any other mental formation. It could be the opposite. So I'm going to focus on speech. In the 4th mindfulness training, who was in the 4th mindfulness training Dharma sharing group? What group was that? Monkeys, yeah. Who was a monkey? And raise your hand. Can you share with me, basically, in a nutshell, what mindful speech is? Not saying things out of anger that would harm or hurt, or out of impulsiveness. Mm-hmm.
And also saying things when possible out of kindness, care, understanding that can help inspire and nourish.
Okay, saying things out of care, kindness that inspire and enrich people. Wow, that's pretty good. It's almost like you've memorized it. It's more than I expected from. Okay, So our tradition, we call it the Plum Village tradition, we have two broad categories. Deep listening necessarily has to be next to mindful speech. Because if you're not listening to the other person while you're sharing, you could be going off on a tangent and you've lost them about half a mile ago, right? So deep listening and mindful speech. But in traditional Buddhism, I guess back in the Buddha's time, we have a further maybe criteria for mindful speech. We talk it in general, the areas of care, the areas of inspiration, but traditionally we call it mindful speech is right speech, which happens to be one of the 8 practices of the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay. So right speech, I really appreciate this about Buddhism. If you're looking to see how you can bring in more understanding and harmony through your way of communicating, there's so many things that we can do to learn more deeply about how we can improve. So it doesn't have to stay amorphous. You don't have to keep falling into that pit hole, that pothole, and not understand why is my loved one not reacting so well whenever I say this. Because it all falls in certain areas, right? So firstly, you have to commit to speaking truthfully, not divisively, not harshly, and not idly. Okay. So in the broader context, again, why this is important is because our heart's direction is to have a deep understanding. And all of these things, if we don't do it, if we lie, we obscure the truth. It makes it hard for us to really touch the truth of ourselves and the truth of other people. It deceives other people. If we speak divisively, it causes a hardening of the heart. And how can we soften into our humanity when we're defensive? We don't speak harshly because that is an automatic, people automatically withdraw without having the capacity to stay and listen to what you might consider a truth, what you call a hard truth or just the brutal truth. It's too brutal for some people and they won't stick around for it. So in a relationship where it requires continuous presence and growth, you cannot put into the soil of your garden these elements and expect your relationship to grow deeper, right? Each one of us has a part in the way we speak to nourish the other person's capacity to listen. Right? So it's a two-way game. We cannot just say, you're just too sensitive. No, if we really love, we accept, with equanimity, we accept that person's personal landscape and we seek skillful ways to reach their heart. Speak truths in a way that is not harsh. So I strongly, strongly always emphasize this is a misnomer, this is a wrong perception if we think that truth has to be spoken brutally. Absolutely not. And lastly, idly is chatter. Things that take us away from the present moment, that fill our head with nonsense and don't help us settle. So last year in our 3-month retreat class, we touched on this briefly, and I'm going to challenge our novices to uncover again that sutra that speaks about the 10 wholesome and 10 unwholesome topics of conversation that one should have as a contemplative. Okay? There's details like that, very interesting. Okay. So this reminds me, sometimes when we have an issue with someone, we'll speak a little bit more harshly about them than when we're not, but we don't realize it. In the community, it's like that too. Sometimes I'll hear someone having an issue with someone. And the thing that I listen to when I hear their complaining is one, the content, but also what is their relationship with that other person? Are they coming from a place of jealousy? Are they coming from a place of pride or hurt? You know, there's a lot of information that we can uncover from the way someone is adhering to right speech or not. And my practice is, if I have an issue with someone, I try my best just not to talk about them. Because I know my habit is, if I talk about them, it will eke out in a negative way, and it will affect others in the community. The other aspect that is another way of looking at this from the Buddhist perspective is speech that is well spoken. And this now, especially reflecting on our larger societal space of when to speak and when not to speak. I'm sorry, my writing is so well spoken, but not well written. Well spoken. Spoken, okay. Okay, the Buddha, actually in the Buddha's time, there were a lot of people who tried to put him down because they were rival teachers, or they were jealous of him. And so in a sutra, it's called the Sutra on the Discourse for Prince Abhaya. It's in the Majjhima Nikaya. It details how this prince was encouraged by a rival teacher to try to trick the Buddha into sharing about speech to discredit him. And basically, the prince was tasked to come to the Buddha and ask him, if you were to speak unwelcome, what would you do if you were to speak unwelcome words? Do you speak unwelcome words or not? Because the Buddha had previously shared as a teaching that words that are well spoken have to have a number of elements to be considered blameless, to be considered well spoken. One is, it has to be timely. So something happened, and you're in the morning, and then at dinner time you're sitting together, and suddenly you lash out at your partner about that thing in the morning, and suddenly everyone has a stomach upset. That would not be timely, right? It has to be, again, truthful. It has to be spoken gently. And I know maybe some of you are already feeling maybe that's a little bit hard to stomach, but we'll go into that a little bit later. It has to be beneficial. And lastly, it has to be spoken from a place of loving kindness. Okay. So for the Buddha, that is his criteria for what is well spoken. The truths that we hold, that we want to share, our hurts, our sensitivities, the suffering in the world, these are the criteria. When we say gently, it doesn't mean just kind of like tiptoeing around an issue, right? But it means spoken from a place of respect, like mutual respect. You see the humanity in the other person. You're not talking down to the person. You're not berating them. But it's from a place you have a clear connection of respect that allows the words to come out in a gentle, affectionate, or at least not harsh way. Right? And from a place of loving kindness means you yourself, as the speaker, are clear what the intention. You're sharing these words because very clearly you want to help. You want to, from a place of goodwill. All of this requires a practice of awareness, because oftentimes we speak out of habit, we speak out of reaction, and those reactions are just from a place of either what we like or don't like. So basically, we're speaking in a way that's unmindful. Coming back to our teacher's catchphrase, mindful speech is everything that helps us to slow down, pause, really connect with the intention behind what we're sharing, the way we share, when we share, how we share, and of course, what we share. Right? So the Buddha had said that he will share, he would speak on a topic if it were truthful and beneficial. But if it were not easy to hear, he would wait for the right time to share. So it doesn't mean that he would avoid sharing that, but he would find a skillful means to share at the right time. The question for us to suss out is, what does right time mean? Right time for who? In what scope? Okay, that's something to look at. But I just want to share some general guidelines first. So it has to be truthful, and it has to be of benefit for the situation that we're speaking to. And whether or not it's easy to hear, it depends on, that will then dictate when we step in, step up to speak about the matter. Okay. So Prince Abhaya, hearing that, he wanted to trap the Buddha into painting him as either cowardly for not speaking when things were unpleasant, or speaking out the truth even if it were unpleasant to hear, and then being labeled as a harsh speaker because he had already given the teaching that we shouldn't speak harsh words. So the Buddha's reply helped to kind of jump out of that either-or situation, because he highlighted this very important aspect of timing, skillful timing. Okay. So this helps us inform when we have conversations, and especially differences in opinions and agreement with our loved ones, to take a step back and reflect, what is my habit? Am I a brutal truther? Do I just blurt out whenever I feel that I need to get it off my chest, for example? Am I saying things because I want to say I'm hurting, but in a way that's hurting the other person? Is it actually beneficial, or is it watering that seed of anger? Some of us, when we get angry, we speak and speak and speak, and we get even more angry. Right? So all of these points are to help us reflect when we're not in the hot seat. What is our habit of speech? To truly see, are we speaking mindfully or not? Is our speech right speech or not? And the more we can speak mindfully, the more we're in line with the four immeasurable minds, because it's the energy that we give out when we speak in our habit. Right? So do we want to offer space? Do we want to come back to ourselves, or do we want to put blame and expectation on other people? For those of you who are interested in exploring that sutra on the discourse on the discourse to Prince Abhaya, it is in the Majjhima Nikaya number 58. And it emphasizes skillful means. Yeah? Okay. So the Buddha, basically, he advocated these practices for all of us, from lay practitioners to contemplatives, because wherever we are a community of people. We connect, we converse, we exchange our energies through our thoughts and opinions, and we can even come to war or division. Even in a spiritual community, there have been dangers of community splitting because of the community not adhering to principles of mindful speech, deep listening. And of course, we can see many examples of this in the world right now. So this practice of loving more truly one another is equivalent to being more and more careful with the way we speak, right? Pulling that into an awareness rather than as an afterthought. Secondly, I'd like just to emphasize again that the work of loving, of protecting, of offering and creating peace is an ongoing endeavor. And that is what our monastic community strives to do every day on an individual basis, first of all, in the way that we come back and take care of to be aware of these three areas, what our mind is putting out, what we're putting out through our speech, and how we can purify that to come back to a place of truer understanding for one another, truer peace, truer harmony, not superficial peace, superficial harmony. And as a Sangha member, of which you are all a part, when we connect and commit to Sangha, it means that we are also committing to practicing these very concrete practices in the 5 mindfulness trainings to strengthen that oasis of peace, not just for ourselves, but for those outside of the Sangha, so that we can invite them into an alternative. Okay. A little bit more on that near the end. I just wanted to appreciate some of our long-term friends who've come back. Our 3-month friends who've been here last winter, could you raise your hands? Yeah. So this next winter, starting in October or November, we're beginning a mindful living exchange program for those who are interested, like our friends, who are to come and stay and practice with the monastery for anywhere between 1, 2, 3 or longer. It's a space to really go more deep into your practice, to be able to really let go of those things outside so that you can do some deep work in a supportive environment. I also wanted to, I know, Eleanor, are you here? Eleanor has been staying with for almost 2 months now, and I think today's her last day, so she's going off to remind me again, Community Stream Restoration Manager in California. So that's proof that just because you come here for 2 months, you don't drop off the earth. But it's a kind of strengthening to help you reconnect with your priorities, maybe recharge, recenter, and re-engage. So don't be afraid of these opportunities that are coming up, to connect more deeply. In the monastery, there's a tradition where those who are about to get married, they make a commitment to come and practice for an extended period before their marriage, again, in order to go deeper, to reconnect with their inner world, so that when they enter into marriage vows, it'll be that much more supported. So we show up in different ways, and sometimes we need to take the time to pause. And as adults, we also need that. It's not just an issue when we're just in college, but sometimes as adults, we need to just stop and take stock of where we've landed and reset our course for the sake of our own sanity. And I'd just like to say, please don't be afraid of those pauses. You might actually be doing the sanest thing that you could be doing for yourself. And we're here to support you to do that. So to end, I'd like to invite David, where are you? David, to come up, to share a little bit about this aspect of engagement of the heart. And I've invited David to share a letter that he recently wrote on behalf of him and Sophie Sarkar and local sanghas who are engaged more directly with issues outside. And I'd like also on a meta space to ask you to hear him deeply, to hear not just what he's saying, but to listen in light of right speech, of well-spoken words, of mindful speech, especially on what we would consider a very sensitive topic in Dharma circles, in Sangha circles. Thank you, David.
So, hello, dear Sangha. As Sister Tanyam shared, I wrote this with a dear Sangha friend, Sophie Sarkar, who is a wake-upper and OI aspirant in the Bay Area, who stayed here for about a year.
David, can you put
closer? Okay, can you hear me okay? Okay. Beloved Sangha, my dear Dharma sister Sophie Sarkar and I are reaching out to invite you and others in our Plum Village community to join us and the Buddhist Peace Fellowship at the Interfaith Action for Palestine in Washington, D.C. from June 29th to July 1st. It's starting today. The Buddhist Peace Fellowship is the official convener for Dharma practitioners at this gathering and is calling together practitioners across lineages and traditions to bring our collective presence, prayer, deep practice, and witness to this vital interfaith moment. We would love to stand alongside our fellow Plum Village siblings as part of this interfaith call for peace and justice for all. As people of conscience committed to human dignity and human rights for all, we are grieved by the relentless bombing, prolonged starvation, and the obstruction of humanitarian aid to Palestine. We feel it is our moral and spiritual responsibility to denounce this disregard for the sacredness of life. Regardless of our religion or ethnicity, we cannot remain silent given the urgent need for humanitarian intervention and for governments, especially the U.S., to demand humanitarian aid, uphold international law, and fiercely support efforts towards a peaceful resolution. Whatever our views of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, we cannot complicitly watch thousands of people, including children, die from starvation and bombs while the U.S. government unconditionally supplies arms. Together we will gather in compassionate resistance, bringing our mindfulness, peace, and courage to stand for human rights and liberation for all people in the region. We also acknowledge the suffering of Israelis, including the October 7th attacks, which were extremely traumatic for many Jewish people globally. As practitioners, our aim is not to take political sides, but rather to stand resolutely against mass killing, injustice, and oppression, doing whatever we can to help prevent further needless, horrific destruction of life. Our teacher, Tay, has taught us so clearly and compassionately that the suffering of Palestinians is the suffering of the Israeli people and vice versa, that this conflict increases the suffering for all involved, both now and for future generations, and that protecting the sacredness of life in Palestine is also protecting the sacredness of life in Israel too, both now and for their and our descendants. If you're interested, please register on the Interfaith Action for Palestine, which I have some information about, and also on the another form for the Buddhist contingent. If you're unable to attend in person, you can still participate by registering for the online program or supporting efforts with a donation to help those who are protesting together. Please also feel free to reach out with any questions. With deep bows of care and solidarity, David Villafora, and Sophie Sarkar. Let me just share a couple of other words here. So there's an online program that's happening that the Buddhist Peace Fellowship is organizing, like Buddhists in Solidarity. That's happening tomorrow, and I think it's like around 3 p.m. So Kate Johnson from the Buddhist Peace Fellowship is facilitating that, but there's going to be, it's going to represent chants and practices across Buddhist traditions. And if you're in the Washington, D.C. area, you can participate. There's different Buddhist affinity gatherings. There's an interfaith rally that's going to be on Capitol Hill on Tuesday morning. That's going to be quite large. Bhikkhu Bodhi, who lives close to here, is traveling down tomorrow to be a main speaker. And there's a contingent of us Plum Village practitioners who will be there. And there's a variety of kind of events. There's direct actions, which are more like, you know, the things non-violently getting you into jail, civil disobedience. But there's also like art projects, and there's going to be singing choirs, and there's going to be meditation, just to show up in whatever kind of ways that feel aligned with our kind of values and with the kind of capacity or risk that we want to have for doing this. So I'm going to leave this blue sheet over there on the chair, and you can sign up, and I'll be emailing people about the different ways to be involved later this afternoon. So thank you for the opportunity to share about this and for listening. For me, I know I have more hope when I actually take some action that I feel like is beneficial. It's so easy to turn away or to drown in kind of despair and overwhelm, but we don't have to. We can connect with other practitioners and find ways to be involved from smaller to bigger ways, and that involvement is what lifts us and gives us more hope for kind of better resolutions around this. So thank you.
Thank you, David. So the Buddhist Peace Fellowship was the fellowship that sponsored Tay originally to come over to share about the suffering of the American War in Vietnam. So we have very clear guidelines to help point us in the right direction, and also to protect us from not falling sway to anger or reaction, but from a place of clear seeing we act. And every one of us, we each gauge for ourselves what is our point of engagement. And as long as we are earnestly engaged in the practice of peace in our sphere and looking around us to see how it connects with the larger sphere of which we're a part, then we're already doing our part. Okay. Each one of us knows when and how to step forward when it is right for you, if it is right for you, when it's timely for you. So Sangha is a space where we can support one another to step forward and step back. It's not a black and white thing. And Sangha is also a place where we support one another to share our heart, just like we had this space, as Tim shared. We have a space to be vulnerable, to share what really matters to us, with the trust that all of us as a Sangha are practicing to listen beyond our reaction, our habitual reaction, to listen more deeply to what the need is, right? So we support by hearing one another, reflecting how it relates to us, and then gauging where we can step forward or how we can support. And that applies to our relationships one-on-one, and it applies to our relationships on a global scale. There is a tension in community sometimes. I've heard it's in Wake Up. It's also in ROI communities and other small local sanghas where people sometimes feel they cannot speak out about certain issues. So that is something for us to actively engage in this Dharma study. What kind of speech is being used and what kind of Dharma ear is being used to hold space? Can we recreate these spaces of healing that we're touching in the monastery when we go back into Wake Up local New York? local Maryland, local wherever. That is our vision, as we shared last night. Our vision of Sangha is when we light one light, we can share that light and it spreads. So thank you for your presence, your participation, your energy. We hope that we have a chance to see you again sometime soon, not necessarily wait until Wake Up 2026, but next week, next weekends. And together we continue to grow and build Sangha. Thank you.
Hello, dear friends. Please.